Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. In this video, I want to give a bit of a detailed breakdown of the content and material that's included in the Rewire Neurodynamics Grip Strength course, as well as maybe a little bit of a justification of why this is something that I've chosen as the Rewire flagship course. A few people have already been contacting me, kind of asking, we've got the Neurobands. What kind of course is this grip strength course? The price points are very different. As such, what else could it possibly have in it other than the workouts and stuff like that would justify the course being so much bigger? And the answer to that is basically that while the Neuroband was supposed to be like a really easy introduction into brain-based training, neuroscience in general, especially an introduction to the eyes and the inner ear, the grip strength course is designed to be a lot more comprehensive. So Neuroband essentially designed for people who weren't sure whether this is a leap that they want to take or whether it's something they might even be interested in. When it comes to grip strength and hand function, this was more geared towards people who kind of were already sold on the idea that, this is something that they want to look into and pursue. That being said, I think when people hear the name of grip strength course, they very much imagine like super hard hitting, lots of different types of contraction type exercises. And a lot of the time it doesn't feel like there can be a whole lot of variation in that. When I think about a grip strength course, I think about it in slightly different terms. For me, grip is not about hitting the maximum force at any one time. Good grip is more like saying good hand function. Good hand function means you should be able to put the exact right amount of force into every single task that you do. So when you're in your weight training or climbing or whatever, and you actually need a huge amount of force maybe in a weird hand position, you want to be able to apply that. When you're doing very, very mild, fragile, delicate work, you don't want to have that same massive type of force. I always tell people grip strength is only useful if you have the ability to switch it on and off and slide it on that scale as appropriately as you can. You wouldn't want to be holding a glass of water with the same force that you would hold a barbell or something else. And when it comes to the content of the course, it's essentially broken down into 9 key modules. So we'll just very quickly touch on what each of those are, why they've been included, and hopefully you'll see the nature of this kind of comprehensive course rather than just one size fits all type workout. So the first module is going to be around strength. This is pretty much all the exercises that you would do in your kind of daily grip strength workout. There's probably nothing surprising about that, except that, as I said, we're not seeking to train the maximum force contracted at all times. We're actually seeking to improve grip under a wide range of circumstances. So a lot of those exercises, while some of them do involve squeezing really, really hard or holding for a really long time, there is a lot of variation between exactly what kind of exercise you're doing so that you've got a better awareness of the function of your own hands. Then we move into the coordination module. This is going to be more like a mobility or a warm-up type module to most people. That's what it will look like if you're familiar with movement in general. What we see when it comes to grip strength, because of the coordination required between pulling and pushing muscles or contraction and relaxation, good coordination is actually essential to produce high-level contractions, and it's something that gets left out of a lot of grip strength training. So while these exercises may seem pretty low intensity, they actually require a lot of precision to make them work really well. Third module we'll get into is around the muscles. Now, For a lot of people, muscles is where all the money is, and that's the one that gets them excited about purchasing this course or coming to any of my grip strength workshops. We think, all right, if we can figure out the individual muscle contractions as well as how to integrate them together, that's going to do 90% of the work of our grip. What I have come to learn through years and years of kind of looking into grip, learning about how it works, the muscles really play a very small part in how grip works. Sure, they're important when muscles are weak. If certain muscles aren't firing well on their own, or if they're not integrating well into the group, that is going to cause you problems. But rather than that helping the 90% of the time that people think, actually the muscle contractions seem to be that final 10% of gains that you might actually get. So it comes in early in the course because it's the thing that draws people in. You can learn kind of some weird muscle contractions that some of you are going to feel pretty hard, but just be aware the money comes from how you get the brain involved. Your brain controls your grip a lot more than your muscles do. So after muscles, then we go a little bit further up the chain and actually get more of the brain involved. Now we're going to look to the nerves. So this course covers two nerves, the median nerve and the ulnar nerve, and we're going to look at tensioning techniques and flossing techniques. That's essentially how you're going to get all of those muscles integrated together instead of contracting them all one at a time. And it also is going to have a much bigger impact in how your brain kind of senses what's going on. So the nerve tensioning exercises, super useful. Also super useful for lots of other things. If you're dealing with any kind of wrist, elbow, shoulder, neck injury, some of these muscle tensioning exercises can be useful for that as well. Then once we get from the muscles, now we're going more into the brain territory of what is the neuroscience behind grip. So the next module is going to be about fuel. This is all about getting the right amount of oxygen to your brain so that you can create the appropriate number of chemical reactions required to contract muscles over and over again. When we look at the brain, your hands, the brain cells that make up movement in the hands are far greater in number than pretty much any other part of your upper limb. They're probably bigger than most of the rest of your body, even combined together. Your hands use an awful lot of energy, and this is one of the reasons why the grip strength course is my kind of flagship. It's the one I'm really trying to push forwards with. Is we get really used to doing work on our shoulders and our elbows and things like that because our brain isn't essentially very good at controlling those things, and that kind of makes sense. But unfortunately, over time, we tend to neglect what's going on with our hands. As our hands start to lose function, we actually see brain function decrease overall. And that's where you start to see a lot of studies linking things like mental health and mood and longevity with grip strength, is essentially because the hands turn out to be more important. As such, they need a lot more energy than any other part of the body. So we've got a couple of exercises that are going to help fuel the body appropriately so that we can actually maintain our grip for as long as the muscles are able to. The muscles are usually always able to keep going for longer than the brain will allow. Okay, next up we have reflexes. This is where I'm going to wish I brought some notes with me. Reflexes. Basically, we're going to look at two different types of reflexive actions. We've got the cross-cord reflex. That is kind of a reflex that exists in the spinal cord from one limb to another. You'll probably have heard of that one at school, you know, when you put your hand on the hot stove and it kind of recoils it back. Well, there's some reflexive muscle actions that can change flexor and extensor contractions from one side of the body to the other. We also have the interlimb neural coupling reflex, which couples the right arm to the left leg and the left arm to the right leg. And we can use both of these to get a little bit more activation in the hands themselves. So muscles around the hands, the joints of the hands can see activation improve when we train maybe the other limb, maybe the opposite side of the body. And this is mostly going to be useful for people who are rehabilitating their grip. So you might have got yourself into an injury and your grip strength is weak because of that. Very often this is where the reflexive actions are going to be super helpful. Then it's going to be useful if you're, what do we say? The muscles might cover that last 10%, well, maybe the last 1%. When you've really hit a plateau and nothing else is working, that's when we'd probably jump back into some of these reflexive actions and see if we can get just a little bit more out of the tank. Anywhere in the middle, it's not going to be quite as useful, and that's why it's kind of buried a little bit further down in the course. After the reflexes, we've got stress. Now, stress is buried further down in the course, but not because it's not useful. Stress actually seems to be one of the #1 reasons that grip strength is reduced. When we combine the fuel side of things and stress reduction together, you will probably see bigger gains to your grip strength than most of the physical training that you're able to do. In this course, we look at ways that we can reduce physical stress. So we're not going to sort out your life struggles and problems. We'll have to figure those out as you go. But physical stress actually is a huge component of what can reduce your grip strength and just increase stress levels in general. So we're going to look at things that will influence your vision, things that will influence your balance. We'll have some breathing exercises and things like that that will help to reduce physical stress so that our hands can perform more optimally. Okay, what is after stress? After stress, we have sensory. So rule in neuroscience, sensory before motor. Anything that you can't feel well, you probably can't move well. So when we're trying to improve our grip, sometimes we actually need to take a step back and just see what is the sensation like from one hand to the other. Can we actually feel things appropriately? And sometimes actually sensation can be a really nice warm-up. We'll go through a lot of different kinds of sensation that you can apply to your hands. Some of them your brain might prefer more than others. For some of you, it's just going to be general bit of everything is going to do the job. That sensory work is going to increase brain activation in the sensory cortex of the brain, which will then lead to better function of the motor movement cortex of the brain. It'll also serve to get a little bit more blood flow into the area as well. So that can be really useful as a kind of warm-up exercise for grip, along with the coordination exercises. Okay, I hope I haven't forgot one. I think the last module is the cognition element. So grip strength, as we've kind of talked about with fuel, we've talked about with stress, your executive function, your cognitive ability to make decisions, ignore distractions, etc., is the same part of the brain, coming from the same part of the brain that controls voluntary movement of the hands. And because of this, when our cognitive faculties, so our executive function, our decision making, etc., are occupied, we actually find it harder to get optimal use out of our grip. When I'm training clients one-to-one with grip strength work, we often find that people can get really, really good results when they're in a gym setting. However, then they take it out into, they're climbing, their archery, their weightlifting, whatever, and for some reason it just isn't transferring. Sometimes we don't just need to look at the specificity of the movement, we actually need to look at what is going on consciously in the brain at the same time, because if we have never trained our grip with cognitive distractions, we find that actually it's really hard to get the same kind of performance out of our hands. So the cognition section, it's right at the end because it's probably the last thing you're going to want to add on top, but it's going to look at different types of cognitive exercises that you could potentially layer on top of those grip strength exercises from the strength workout, and that should again just stress test your grip to make it a little bit more bulletproof in the long run. So those are the exercises from the course. Do feel free, if there's any more questions that you have, you can leave them in the comments. I'm really kind of proud of this work. I definitely think it's worth investing in, and I think grip strength might even be a disservice to the course itself. It's probably more accurate to call it a hand function course. You will see your grip strength improve, but it's going to be so much more than that. And I think the only reason it's not called a hand function course is I don't think anyone would buy a course with that name. But we're going to look at, grip. We're going to improve your dexterity. We're going to improve the relationship between your hands, your elbows, your shoulders, your neck. We're also going to be looking at all of those cognitive functions, the fueling, the stress, the sensation and everything. It really is a fully comprehensive course, all in one, and that's my pitch for it. Final thing you might need to know, if you want to make full use out of the whole course, you are probably going to want to invest in a grip dynamometer. So this is a grip dynamometer. This is sort of the main tool that we use for the strength training. Basically, it gives you a little reading to tell you how much force you're pulling at any one time. If I turn it on here, don't know about the camera quality, but we can see when it goes up, we can see when it goes down. When I let go, it gives me my top reading. Now, this is a digital one. I would recommend getting a digital dynamometer for this course. However, the just analog manual ones can work. You just won't be able to see your maximum reading in different arm positions, but they are much cheaper. So, if you can live with that, then it's probably no problem. There are some other bits of equipment that you will use for the course, but they are all going to be household items, things that you can find fairly easily, something like a tennis ball that you can throw and catch, and a few different items that you're going to use for sensation in the sensory module. Again, you can find it in a cutlery drawer or a stationery cupboard. Nothing that is going to break the bank or be too unusual. Finally, I think in the fuel section, we look at blood flow restriction. You can go out and purchase blood flow restriction armbands if you don't have them already. But again, you can make makeshift versions of these with items that you can find in your home as well.